Hello guys, it's Peter from PS Sound, and in this following video with this high-end builds, I want to show a few things about this Ampreg build for you guys. Hopefully, some of these tips and tricks help you along your projects. Yeah, as you could see from the introduction with the amplifiers, with the Brax amplifiers, you definitely have to design a rack where you have either a lot of airspace for passive cooling, or you build a rack where you have active cooling with fans. Some people, most people normally have an amp rack on the floor, but then you would put all your luggage onto the top of it. So how would you sort out cooling? And that's probably one of the main things I always look at when I design an amp rack, because in some countries you might be fine, like in UK you don't have that high temperatures, but if you live in the US, in Texas or Florida or anywhere hot, then yeah, especially with big amplifiers that can get hot, cooling is a major factor. So with this one, because we don't have to worry too much about how much space we leave in the car, although I was told that if we could keep this back section practical, so we will have a trim panel over the subwoofer, practical panel, the sub will still be able to breathe through, but this space will be functional, then we can use all that for the amps. So when I start designing an amp rack, I always look at how you can mount it the safest way. People always want to see a design, what the trunk would look like at the beginning, but it's really rare that actually I can draw a design and I can show something to them so they can imagine what it would be like when it's done. So most of the times people just literally have to trust me, and yes, they are always happy at the end how the builds look. But when it comes to mounting, you have to check whether you want to use OEM mounting points, or you have to drill holes and then fit rib nuts. But you cannot just put amplifiers onto the floor and then let them move around, or bolt them to the rear seat, because no, I'm sure many people did that when they started at the beginning. But you want to save space for your amplifiers, because in a way, for most people, buying equipment is an investment as well. You don't want to fuck them up and then feel sorrow when you have to sell them for a fraction of the price you could sell them for. So in this one, for the amp rack, there are 6 mounting points. There are 2 mounting points, so one on each side. You can only see a hole that goes into the OEM thread on the side of the trunk, which was the OEM tie point. Then you have another 2 points here with these really thick brackets, which will pull to the sub box, as I also showed in the previous video when I showed how that sub box was built. And then in this car there's like a rear strut brace or whatever it is running across the car, which has like a box section, so it's easy to drill a hole in that and then push a threaded bar over it. Alternatively, you could fit a threaded insert and then have a bolt going down. That's another option. In this one I decided to have a threaded bar going up, so when the rack sits onto it you can just bolt it down with nuts, and then that keeps it in place. Then obviously you want to design the amp rack in the way that it's going to be the main mounting point for you, for your panels, for your trim panels. If you want to make it look nice and neat, you don't want to see bolts anywhere on display. So you really have to think in advance how you hide bolts, how you leave enough tolerance. Like on this one as well, the parcel shelf is going to come on the top, so I had to leave enough space for the trim panel that's going to sit on the top of the rack. So that had to be taken into consideration right at the beginning. You can see holes here and then back there. These small pieces are for the top trim panel that's going to sit on the top, and then I can bolt it from underneath I will just drill through into the trim panel, fit inserts in the trim panel, and then you can bolt it on from underneath. You won't see any of the bolts, it will look nice and slick. And then same way, these little pieces of wood each side are also there for the side panels. When you put the panel in place, then at least at these 2 points you can fix it. Then the sub box is going to be the mounting point for the bottom and the back side. There's another reason why I built this sub box so wide, so I can easily use it for mounting, and I can still hide the mounting even at the floor with another trim panel going onto the floor. There will be another panel probably hiding the sides, because you also have to think about, you know, how to keep the amps protected. Yes, you want to leave as much as possible on display, but when you load the car, you know, you need either a removable panel or a fixed panel that covers as much as possible. The top panel will have cutouts on the top, so the air can you know, fly up. Hot air always flies up. The big Brax amplifiers have built-in fans, so that's at least a good thing. Zapco big AB class bridge is going to run the sub, that's going to be there. And then another amplifier, it's already drawn up, and you can see the threaded inserts fitted in the plywood. Well, for every single amplifier I use threaded inserts, so I can use machine bolts for proper fixing. And that amplifier is going to be for the shakers. On the other side, we had enough space for the power distribution and the relay for split charging. That's going to be the second part of the video when I have the rack wired up, so that I can talk you about wiring. And yeah, the best thing in this solution is that you can take the whole rack out. Obviously, that's another important thing, that you can't make it wide enough. You see, I have so much space on the side that I could have used, but then you can't take the rack out. This way I can slide it out from the trunk. It's a bit tight at the opening, so there's only that area where it can slide out really, because it's getting narrow at the bottom. But then this way I can do everything on the bench. It's way more efficient, way quicker. And then the whole wiring can actually happen on the bench as well, and then I can chuck it back and then wire up all the speaker cables, the incoming charging cable, the earth, and so on. So this way, well, actually, yeah, it's really similar to my Honda build. You can check out the playlist for my Honda. Then I have a video in that one as well where I show how the trim panels were built in the Honda. That's another interesting, fascinating video. But now, yeah, I take it out, I crack on with wiring, and then I'm going to show that to you once it's done. I think it's worth to show this one to you as well, guys. So this is going to be the mounting for the DSP, kind of floating in between the two amplifiers. I created that interesting looking, it looks a bit like an animal head, like a bull's head. So that bracket is bolted over there with two bolts from the back, and then there are other two bolts on the top locking it in so it doesn't have a chance to move. It's part of the whole rack now, and I thought that it would be nice to have nice edge-lit perspex around the DSP, as well as you can see, the groove. And now, you know, many people ask me, you know, how I do the lighting. Now you can see a little tip. So I have a little it's probably like 3mm routed out from the perspex where the LED is going to sit into, wash into the perspex. And you may have to do tests whether it's enough, or you have to reflect it back into the perspex from the back. It depends on what effect you want, because then now I could also light with that LED. I could wash the Zapco amplifier at the back through the perspex. But I used machine bolts over here as well. There are inserts in that wooden piece. Everything was PU glued together, screwed and nailed, so it's rock solid. And then you can see this little groove here. That's gonna be the channel for the wires to go through from underneath as well, because this is the output side of the DSP and that's the input side on the top. So that's where the power comes in, remote wires, coaxial input, and then all the outputs to the amplifiers on that side. So that way it will be nice and neat. All right, let's spray paint this whole rack. Probably I'll paint it to grey. Not much is going to be seen from the rack anyway. And to be fair, I really like the raw wood, but I don't want to keep it like that in this car. The whole car is grey, dark grey. So yeah, I paint it and then I mount all the equipment and start the wiring. This is just a fraction of the wiring that had to be done. This is purely speaker cables and one control cable, and that's it. And all the rest is in the rack already. So 3 pairs of speaker cables, nicely terminated, which is for the front three-way. One end, the speaker end, is not terminated yet because the speakers will come with their own ring terminals, you will see. Then the other end at the amp side, it's fairwood up. Many people are against it. I am not. And if you want to start a debate about it, good luck. But everything is labeled. Positive and negative can be easily determined by the cable, which has one side has a white line in it, so you can see it through the braiding. But I always put the label on the positive side as well. Then we have sub cable that's terminated with XT90, which is slightly bigger than the XT60. And for each side, positive and negative, I'm running the speaker cable doubled up. So it definitely delivers enough to the subwoofer, and this goes to the amp side. Then we have rear field cables terminated on the speaker ends with XT60 because the speakers, rear speakers, have to be soldered, and it will have a short fly lead with the opposite sex of the XT60. So should I need to remove it or fit it, then it's definitely safe and secure. Then we have, what is this? This is for the shakers. It's a Y split cable for each side, each front seat with XT60s. So if a seat has to come out, it can be unplugged easily. And that's the amp side, because it's a monoblock. And then we have a control cable also, which is the main switch in the system. So the system can be turned off with a switch up front. So I'm sending permanent live up front to the switch, and then there's a return coming back, which is the remote input for the DSP. This way we are independent from the car's ignition. The system can be turned on and off without the engine on or the ignition on or anything. But the DSP will also run in power safe mode, which means that it can automatically turn on and off. It can turn on with signal detection, so if the owner plays anything from the DAP, then the system comes on in a couple of seconds, turns on automatically. And then if it doesn't play anything, after a given time, you can set it up from like 1 second up to 3 minutes, I think, on the Helix software, well, on the Brax, because yeah, now we have the Brax DSP, but the system will just go off automatically and we'll turn the amplifiers off. So this is just a fraction of the cables. Then we have a few more control cables. These all go in, and then I show the rest of the amp rack to you guys. So I just want to demonstrate to you guys that even if we have quite a fair amount of weight already in the car, but when the sub box and the amp rack is mounted properly, then nothing is going to move, nothing is going to rattle. You know, I can move the whole car literally from the sub box. I can move the whole amp rack and nothing is moving a fraction of a millimeter. The only rattle you could hear was the protective foil on the car, because it goes over the wheels, and when the car is moving up and down, you know, that was the only noise. But otherwise
This is solid as hell.
Alrighty, let's talk through this amp rack then, because most of the wiring is in except the RCAs. They are delayed slightly, but I thought not to wait another week till I put them in, or rather, you know, talk about the rest of what I already have in the rack, because that's more than enough to show to you guys. So everything is bolted together now. Sub box with the amp rack. There's a 2mm foam in between the two, crushed together, so there cannot be any vibration between the amp rack and the sub box, but it's rock solid, as you could see when I was shaking the whole car earlier. Brax, it has power, earth, remote in, and a remote out to the amplifiers. My remote in is actually a permanent live running to the front to a switch, so the system can be killed with that switch, but most of the time it's going to stay on because Audio Tech Fisher DSPs can run in standby mode, so you can set up the DSP to come on automatically once you press play on your player, whether it's analog or digital. But we are going to use a Fiio M11 Pro with coax output, which is gonna come into the coax input of the DSP, which is there. Yep. What can we see here? Speaker wires, nicely labeled, using ferrules and protected with heat shrink, as you see. Battery is in place with the fuse within 40 centimeter, which is an EMA rule, and the fuse has to be accessible as well, but it's pretty easy to get there. There will be a trim panel over it, but the trim panel can pop off very easily, and then it will be very easy to get to that. Then we have LED distribution blocks down here, so I can wire in the LED lights for the panels each side. I have two controllers, one on each side, one here and another one there, so I can separate two circuits. But we might try something very new, a new LED controller, proper high-end with LED pixel. I hope I can pull it off within this time. We will see how that goes, but otherwise, even if we just use those LED controllers, that will be good. So as you see, all the cables running in that tunnel. The output RCAs are going to run at the bottom up into that. So that's that. As I showed earlier, these are the points for the trim panel coming on the top, which will be bolted from underneath. Let's see what's inside, because that's where the craziness starts. All right, okie dokie, where do we start? Oh my gosh. Let's start with the power. So, because we have a lithium battery, we could keep them linked, because actually my Honda, the front AGM with the lithium is linked and is just fine. People say you shouldn't because the lithium floats higher. It floats at 13.2, 13.3, but it's a huge lithium, as well as mine in the Honda, and they stay fine. They don't suck the life out of each other. People say they do, but they don't. But in this system, the lithium is split charged with that isolator, as you see. So what happens is that the charging from the front comes in here, and it carries on into this distro block on that wire. So it needs an earth and a switch. The switch is wired into the ignition on the car, so when the car is started and there's charging, then it links the front, so the alternator is going to charge the whole system, and the lithium is coming in over there, and the two distro blocks are linked. Yes, it would be great to have a custom one, a big custom distro block, but it works this way too. Some people hate these stingers, some people hate everything, but I can work with these. So all the big wires, all the batteries run on 0 gauge, that can be fused up to 250 amp, and then the rest of the amplifiers run on 4 gauge, which can be fused up to 125, which is enough for the Brax amplifiers, because they won't draw much, considering they will run, that's going to run mid-high, that's going to run mid-bass and rear fill. And then this is going to be bridge for the Claris 15, the Zapco, but that's never going to draw 125 amp. There's no way. That would be like 1.5 kilowatt. So then we have the negative side the same way. So there's a ground underneath the rack bolted to the chassis that comes in here, as well as the rear battery comes into here as well. So that's pretty much it. You can see the wiring of the Zapco, nice and thick speaker cable running on the sides down to the sub box with XT60 connected to it. This Zapco ST850 XM2 is for the shakers to the front seats, which have the wires hanging out there, so if the seat has to be taken out, it can be disconnected easily. And then I show you something. There you go, that's going to be the next video with the kicks. Something crazy is happening here, a little teaser. So yeah, there's the tunnel where the cable is running and the RCAs were running as well. So as you see, there's enough airspace for ventilation of the amplifiers, and it's pretty easy to access the fuses or anything. If the owner has to get to anything, then you know, he just has to tip the rear seat and then job done. It's all there, nothing hidden. And this is something I wanted to show to you guys, because many people are not quite aware how thick wiring you have to run to your equipment. Actually, Mark at CAF just shared a video, I haven't watched it yet, about figuring out cable thickness. This shows to you what the maximum current is for the given thickness. These are in square millimeter, so if you want to know it, you can easily find it on Google how you can convert it, but 50 square mil is approximately 0 gauge, then 25 square mil is 4 gauge, and so on. And then it shows you exactly how much current you can draw on that cable, and that's the maximum fuse size. You can put in smaller fuse, that's not a problem. You know, you can still run 0 gauge or 50 square mil to an amplifier that will draw 20 amp. It's not an issue. If you want to go crazy, then why not? You can put such a big fuse on it, it's not a problem. But you cannot put, you know, if you use a really thin cable and the maximum is 60 amp, you can't put, you know, a 250 fuse on it, because the fuse will probably not blow and your wire will start to melt up if you have any shortage. So yeah, keep this in mind and maybe take a print screen of it and use it, save it. So here we are, this is the end of this video. Maybe a few things I want to mention. So now this is day 14 into this extreme SQ build, which may sound a lot for people considering it's only just a sub box and the amp rack and the wiring in the car. And I started the kick builds, which is going to be a separate video. But yeah, people have to be familiar with how long these things take, because once it's done, it looks neat and it looks great, but these things take long. You know, all those terminations, I think I have at least 150 cable endings and terminations that you have to do one by one. You know, do the ferrule on it, do heat shrink, braiding, everything, and then running the car properly, secure everything. So it's super time consuming. Now you can see many videos in my playlist. You can see like a 10-day SQ build, which is way simpler than the Kia that we finished in December, that was 19 or 20 days. Chris's TT has seen probably 35 days. My Honda would be like 80 days to do, but that's bonkers. And I also realized that you don't necessarily need crazy dash boxes and all that, what I did in the Honda. But it shows that huge installs take time. And this is looking at 35-40 days in total to the time everything is going to be finished. So yeah, a lot more is coming, guys. So please subscribe if you are not subscribed yet, because then you will see the kick builds. I'm hoping to take video of the dash build as well when we pull the dash out for the mid-range install. Then tweeters will be in the pillars, rear fill in the C pillars. So much more coming from this car that, yeah, crazy. Hopefully I can record as much as possible and share it with you guys. So yeah, hopefully you like this video. You know what to do. Feel free to comment and share it. And please bear in mind that I can't answer to every single question and messages you send to me, because I get like 20 messages in average every day. It's just getting really difficult. But hopefully very soon I can make my life and your life easier as well. You will see hopefully next week when I share a video about that. And yeah, we will see what the next video brings, and hopefully I can talk to you very soon. Take care.